Hey people, it's Dale Gamer here, and I'll be playing some Diablo 3 using my Mage Lancer build. And while I'm playing, I'm going to attempt to play and talk at the same time. So while I'm playing, I'll be discussing a major issue across all Blizzard games right now that's happening in all of these games, and as well as another issue that's attributing to the problems in Diablo 3. So again, I'm going to attempt to play and talk at the same time. I don't know how well it's going to work, but we'll see. All right, so I first want to begin by explaining Blizzard development has gotten fucking out of control as far as the ability for gamers to abuse systems that Blizzard clearly knows is being abused. And instead of actually fixing the problem, they make the problem worse by making a temporary solution that not only won't fix the problem, but will not get justification for the people that the problem is already affected. So what I'm talking about is the silent system and the total abuse people are using to lynch mob people. And so let me turn this volume down because I don't know how loud this is going to be. So just give me 1 second to turn the volume down on this. I just got to make sure there's no enemies out my way. Alright, give me a second. Just gonna make sure I'm not getting snapped. Alright, so let's see. Master volume. Let's turn this down to 5. Alright. Okay, so what's going on is this isn't the silencing issue isn't just happening in Diablo 3. It's happening in Overwatch, it's happening in WoW, it's happening in Hearthstone, it's happening in Destiny 1 and 2. It's happening in every Blizzard game. And I think what's going on that people don't realize it's that big of an issue is because it's only happening in the games that they play. So they wouldn't obviously, it wouldn't really matter if other people are getting silenced in Diablo 3 if people are only play Destiny 2. But that isn't the point. The point is that this issue is going across all Blizzard games. And Blizzard clearly knows this because it's on the forums. And you can't not know this. And so the main issue with this is that Blizzard has set up systems. And I think it's being done because Blizzard just doesn't want anybody playing these games anymore, which is another issue, which I'll get into with Diablo 3. But the main thing here is that whenever anybody brings up that this is a problem, the forum trolls come out of nowhere and start defending the practice of it's okay to abuse the system by posting these really horrendous and absolutely idiotic comments in the forum by telling the people that are posting these complaints, even if it didn't happen to the person saying, well, I've seen this happen too many times in the game, even though it's never personally affected me. Despite that, the people on that reply in the forum saying, well, you're clearly getting silenced, and, if you didn't do anything, you wouldn't be having this issue. Totally ignoring the fact that it's a problem. And so people are lynch mobbing people on purpose and then getting their account silenced. It gets to the point where nobody's going to talk in the chat. And basically, it's people's choice to continue playing the game. I agree to that. But at the same time, you shouldn't have to be subjected to not having to speak in the chat due to retaliation. Now, let me give an example of how ridiculous this is. In Overwatch, people are reporting people because they're picking a lower grade character that does not agree with the rest of the player base. So just by picking the character alone, you get reported for non-involvement. Because I guess apparently it's a sniper, and you aren't you're not contributing because you're staying back doing nothing. So because the community is now deemed what is playable, and one of the options in the report system is to report people for non-involvement, that's a ridiculous issue. Now, you cannot tell me that Blizzard is not aware when they put these options in the game in the first place that they're not going to become abused. It's clear as day. So that brings the point of people bringing up and pointing out that there's literally no reason for a report system to be used because you don't like what somebody says in chat. There are very few exceptions to that. But arguing with people or having a disagreement is not one of them. If you don't like what somebody says, there is a mute, an ignore, and a block player, and there are options to shut off the profanity. Yet, despite these things, Blizzard literally tries to use the excuse of I'm trying to play him. Instead of actually dealing with the system and realizing that they fucked up by allowing this shit in here, or allowing the systems to be used for purposes that are really not game related, they actually use the excuse of, well, those are just added measures to not allow people to be able to do this. Because once you've already said it, the damage has been done. That is totally not relevant. Because the fact that you have to turn these options off manually proves that the person seeing it set themselves up to see it. So the fact here is that Blizzard is obviously allowing the system, putting these systems in there, and then knowing people are going to abuse them, putting them in there for people to abuse them, just so they can drive players out of the game. But what's going to wind up happening is, instead of people driving people out of the game, Blizzard should just say, hey, listen, these options aren't being removed from the game. We put them in there, and since people are going to abuse them, we're just going to shut the game down altogether. Because there's no point in playing a friggin' game, if you're not a community-based game, if you're not going to be allowed to talk to anybody. And if you do talk to anybody, no matter what it is, somebody disagrees with what you say, and then all of a sudden now you're fucked because you can't chat in the game. Now, the reason why this isn't just an issue the reason why this is a major issue is not only is it happening across all platforms, but the mute is set on your account. That means if you get muted in one game, you can't talk in any of them. You can't use your whispers, no anything, because if I get silenced in Diablo 3, I can't talk to my friends in WoW because my account's been muted in Diablo 3. For something that has no relation at all whatsoever to WoW. So people are also complaining that, I got silenced in Overwatch, I can't even talk to my friends. That's complete bullshit. And the people that come to the forum are complete and utter fucking idiots who are actually, I think, honestly starting these problems and then reading the forums and saying, I got them screwed, so I'm going to go in the forum and now cause a bigger problem like I do in a game to try to get them to say something in the forum so that way they can get them banned from the forum too. Now, obviously, is it your choice to, people will say, well, it's your choice, you don't need to respond. And that comment is absolutely fucking ridiculous, and anybody that even thinks like that needs to be removed from the game just for even thinking that way, because nobody should have to be being subjected to this type of bullshit in the first place. And so harassing people, but then telling the people that are being harassed they don't have a right to say anything about it or just ignore them is another issue. And so when you have assholes that are coming from the game saying, well, if you weren't doing anything, you wouldn't be getting banned, it doesn't even matter because they clearly don't read the forum and they're just out to start a problem on the forum as well as in the game. So that clearly proves that the people that are on the forum are the ones actually causing the problem in the game by doing the same thing on the forum they do in the game. They come out with these ridiculous statements that are clearly just troll statements when the rules on the forum say no trolling, and clearly anybody who is actually defending a corrupted system that's been abused by saying, hey, look, I've seen people get silenced and reported because they picked a character. That is not even a justified reason to silence somebody. So for anybody coming into the forum and saying, well, and reading that and then saying, well, you obviously did something wrong, is purposely goading the person, which is what they do in the game. So I'm convinced that the people that are saying this on the forum are the same ones starting these problems in the game that are getting away with it. Now, that brings me to the point on there is people saying that there's going to be, stricter consequences. Blizzard, I guess, is going to be stricter consequences on the people who are abusing the report system. Okay, that's fine. But what about the people that have already been screwed over? Are they going to get unsilenced? No, they won't, because the silence has already happened. So, oh no, it's from this point forward. So what's going on is the people that fuck people get away with it no matter what. So changing this isn't going to actually isn't going to solve anything. It's not going to solve a damn fucking thing. And that brings me to the next point on what these assholes are doing in Diablo 3, because this isn't just, like I said, this isn't just about Blizzard putting report systems in there that people can abuse that they know they were abusing, and I think Blizzard's counting on these people abusing it just to get rid of the older players, so the new player base can come in, or whatever the deal is. I am literally convinced Blizzard wants these games fucked up, and that way nobody plays them. Because I think Blizzard, it's come to the point where Blizzard isn't making as much money off of them anymore, and even though they're still making a substantial amount of money, it's not the same, so we can't let them, we can't have this now. And this is exactly what happens to this is exactly what happens when a game company wants to get rid of a franchise. It's what they did with Metroid. They started making the game so fucking shitty that nobody would play it anymore. Now, sure, a certain handful of people liked the way it was, but the actual player base that, had the Metroid series going couldn't fucking stand the way they did it with the first person. And it's Nintendo did that on purpose. Whoever made the Capcom, whoever did it, whatever company wanted to was responsible for the first person version and shit, they did it on purpose to kill the franchise off, so the game would be forgotten about, because they were done with the franchise. So in that regard, this is what happens to games when game companies are basically tired of it. And rather than to come out and just shut the fucking game down, saying, look, there's too many problems, we've had it. We allowed this stuff and we knew this was going on, but now this is out of control and we're not going to deal with it, game's over. That's what they need to fucking do. Rather than allow this shit to happen so it drives the player base away and then leaves a bad taste in players' mouth. And yeah, players would be pissed off that the games they can't play it, but at least they would respect you for coming out and being fucking honest. I mean, I don't give a rat's ass one way or another. I play this game for fun. It's something I do, and it doesn't really matter to me if I'm silenced or banned or whatever. I just don't give a shit, because the player base is so fucking retarded that there's no point. I don't even talk in chat. Most of this game is done solo anyway, and nobody's even playing Diablo 3 anymore. So let me clarify that, because this is another issue that's going on. All right. Diablo 3 is now nothing but people, hey, can you level me? Hey, can you level me? 14 fucking times in 15 minutes, every half an hour. And then people are complaining that the bots are spamming advertisements about services, but yet people are spamming the same fucking message about being leveled over and over and over again. Now, people that want to not play the game will defend that to no end. And the fact of the matter is, Blizzard needs to fucking put a solo lock on levels 1 through 70, forcing these fucktards to actually play the game, because nobody is playing it anymore. All anybody doing is getting carried over, doing absolutely no work whatsoever, which is what the game is. They buy a grinding game and then they don't play it. And then if you bring this up, they start justifying and coming up with every fucking possible reason they can think of to say, well, why I'm not playing it. That's the game. So when you bring up the fact that Blizzard needs to put a solo lock on levels 1 through 69, all of a sudden everybody has a problem with it, and that's because it would force these assholes to actually play the game instead of not even removing the fucking. They're just removing the fucking. There's no point in fucking having content. And so what winds up happening is Blizzard should just fucking not even. Blizzard should start season off at everybody at level 70 and give them all fucking the high-end gear, because people can say, well, work for the high. The same people that are getting carried to level 70 are the same people who will say, no, you got to work for Primal Gear. What do you want? It handed it to you? Causing a double standard within the game. And so what happens here is, if nobody's even going to play this game anymore on that regard and actually level themselves and do the work from 1 to 70, and Blizzard doesn't, and do the work from 1 to 70, and Blizzard refuses to fucking stop that because it would destroy co-op, co-op's already fucking destroyed. Nobody is working together. People are now saying, I want to be carried. Hold my hand, play the game for me, and that's it. And then they're entitled. And instead of Blizzard saying, fuck off, you're not going to do this, we designed the game this way, you're going to play it this way. They don't do it with Diablo 3, but they did it with fucking WoW. I mean, they totally destroyed the way WoW was by adding in all this excess shit, Pathfinder achievements, making professions useless by allowing you know, your character to do pretty much any profession by freaking putting the garrison in there and the freaking class halls and all this shit. So it basically renders it useless. Now it's just a grind fest for gear. Everything about World of Warcraft is now gone. So there's no point in even, why did they even fucking have it? Why do they even have you leveling from 1 to 70 now? Just fucking grab you, boost you, and that's it. There's no reason to even play the game anymore. All the shit that made the game worthwhile to play is gone. And so what they need to do is they need to shut these fucking games down, because they're causing so many problems in these. They're allowing players to cause so many problems in the games by purposely allowing these options in there. They know is causing a problem to drive players away, rather than come out and say, we fucked up. Yeah, we acknowledge this. We didn't feel like changing it. Now, they don't have to change it, but this is what's happening. And that brings me to the final point and complaint about what Blizzard's doing with you know, the hardcore aspects in Diablo 3 here. Sorry, I can't even freaking speak. Let me go start some bounties here. I need to get this ring out of this. Okay, so anyway, here's the start of this. In hardcore, if your character, obviously everybody knows in hardcore, if your character dies, it's gone. Okay, now if you die from doing something stupid, that's on you. Okay, if you die from doing something stupid, that is completely on you. However, if you get disconnected from the server and you die, Blizzard should be absolutely responsible for restoring your character. Because people are like, well, that's just a test with hardcore. No. Blizzard is actually purposely surging the servers to get people's character on hardcore killed. They do it on purpose. If you die in a rift, a greater rift, your character's dead. People will, well, you know, there's monsters are around. No. My character has been disconnected in a greater rift with no monsters around, and it's died every time I've been in the rift. So there was nothing in the rift to kill me. My character, I just got disconnected from the server. There was no damage going on or anything. I had basically wiped every enemy off of the screen prior to the server lagging, and all of a sudden a huge lag spike happened, and as soon as I logged in, my character was dead. So there's bullshit about, well, you know, as long as no characters, as long as no enemies are around, you won't get killed is bullshit. It's happened to me so many friggin' times. Now, obviously I can stop playing hardcore, but that's not the point. I shouldn't have to stop playing hardcore because Blizzard is purposely fucking with the servers. You cannot tell me that the servers mysteriously just cause these lag spikes. Now, people can blame the connections and everything else, but there are thousands of videos where the person has not had an interrupt on their internet because they're still streaming while the server itself lagged and killed their character. I've had it happen, and I have there's no excuses. Blizzard is purposely fucking with the servers to kill your character on hardcore. That's all there is to it. There's no valid reason that the servers start just all of a sudden in the middle of it just lag. And I've noticed this happens at very specific points after a specific point. Meaning, you be leveling your character to get to 70, and the server doesn't lag at all when you're doing that. But it'll lag after you just get your character set up, or you're just about to get what you need done, and all of a sudden, lag. Now, I've been in rifts where there's still enemies around, and even though I was way above the enemy's level, I still died because, for some random reason, a Tier 1 rift can somehow kill a level 70 with a Paragon of 800. It just doesn't make any sense. Fully geared, fully jacked up, and, you know, in the time frame you log off till now, really, my frickin' pets kill these things with one hit. So, getting killed by enemies at that level is just ridiculous. So the point here is that Blizzard is purposely fucking with the game's mechanics. They're fucking with the systems in here. They're removing the ability for people to enjoy the game, use community aspects by allowing abuses of systems and not doing anything about the abusers, as well as not doing any justification for the people who already got fucked over. The point here is if Blizzard's gonna reset, if Blizzard's gonna apply consequences to people abusing the system, then every single person in existence who's been silenced needs to be reset and unsilenced. Now, I'm not saying that some people don't deserve to get silenced. That's not out of the question. But I am saying that there are way more people that have been silenced due to lynch mobbing than there have been for legitimate reasons. There is literally almost no legitimate reason anybody's getting silenced anymore. And it's, like I said, and the people that mass lynch mob people are going on the forum and causing the same exact problems. And that brings me to a final aspect in Diablo 3 here I want to point out that you'll notice while I'm playing this, because this is the unbalancing of greater rifts. For example, if you do a greater rift, hold on a second, let me okay. Blizzard has purposely fucked with the way greater rifts are done, that they're not even balanced. I've discussed this in multiple videos, and I don't leave comments open under it, because all I'm going to wind up having is the assholes come in underneath my video and start making these ridiculous asinine comments that aren't even related to the issue, totally ignoring what is actually going on. So, as I've said it before, Blizzard, the greater rifts are not balanced whatsoever. And I've pointed out that there are over 30 enemy types in this game, and yet the greater rifts in the upper levels keep picking the same 5 enemies over and over again. The game does the same exact thing with the level layouts. There's like 25 different level layouts, and then instead of getting different ones, you get the same 6 over and over and over and over and over again. Same thing with the enemy types. Same thing with the elite affixes. While it's one thing to have a rift challenging and hard, it's a completely different story to have RNG, have all these excess things in there, and then only have the game keep using the same ones over and over and over again. And then instead of people understanding that the RNG is fucking broken in that, because you can't keep having the same 6 enemies over and over and over again, the same 6 levels over and over and over again, and the same elite affixes over and over and over again, when the list of them is so big, it would be next to impossible for that to happen that many times in a row. So, for example, all I keep encountering on just about every level with this necromancer is mortar, 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 mortar. That's all that's happening with this. It's 90% of the enemy, 90% of the elite affixes is all mortar. It's all mortar and shield and shit illusionists I can't get around. And so what happens here is that if I swap a character, let's say I go in and use a Impale build on a Demon Hunter, all I get is shielded, walled, arcane enemies over and over and over and over again. Well, if there were over 20 elite affixes, then having the same 6 over and over and over again, if there's over 30 levels, having the same 6 over and over again, and if there's over 30 different enemy types, having the same 6 over and over again proves that there's something wrong with the game, because you have all these aspects and yet you can't get any of them. The same applies with enchanting. The enchanting's a fucking mess, because take, for example, strong arm bracers. I have some of those up in my I have some of those up in my chat here. Hold on one second. Yeah, I have some of these up in my chest here. I don't know why I said chat. But I'll give you a case in point. These bracers. Now, the ability on these bracers is it causes enemies that that are suffering get hit by knockback to take X amount of increased damage for 6 seconds. Now, this usually applies to a demon hunter's vault because it says you vault through knocking the enemies back and stunning them. So what happens is when you put this on here under the secondary skill, there's an ability that you can put on them. A stat that you can put on them that says chance to knock back enemies on hit. Now, every time, actually it would be under this, sorry. Chance to knock back on hit. Now, I have over 700 million gold. I've had 1 billion. I've had 3 billion, 5 billion, whatever. That isn't the issue. Okay, now if you take a look at all of the enchantments you can put on this thing, ignore durability loss level requirement, increase gold, things like that. I spent, and this has been, this issue is, I don't want to say issue, but this situation has repeated itself over and over and over again. Where if I've tried to put knockback on these bracers from this ability, and it never shows up. I get every single one of these enchantments that you see on the screen over and over and over and over and over again. I get every single one of them except knockback, chance to knockback, which proves the RNG enchantment is also broken. You cannot go through over 1 billion gold rolling this thing over 800 times and not have knockback come up once, but you've had everything else on this entire enchantment branch over and over again, multiple times, versions of it, every type of, max version, the max amount, the least amount, the minimal amount, things like that, and not get one knockback on hit once. It's not possible. That happens consistently. I have spent a total of over 3.5 trillion gold between 6 versions of these bracers, spending over 20 minutes rolling these enchantments, rolling them over 700 times a piece, and never once has that enchantment ever come up on this at all. The RNG for that, now people are like, well, some enchantments are rarer than others. Well, that automatically breaks the RNG. Lowering certain enchantments is broken RNG, but to not even have it come up at all once is definitely broken, because there's no reason at all that I shouldn't have had that come up at least once. At least once. And it doesn't show up. So, you have broken RNG mechanics for rolling enchantments. You have broken RNG mechanics on the system of getting, what map layouts or, what level layouts are for a greater rift. Same thing with enemies. Okay? When I'm doing multi-shot, all I keep getting, almost 85% of all rifts, are just poison enemies. Over and over and over and over and over again. Molten enemies, over and over and over again. Mortar enemies, over and over and over again. How the fuck come those keep showing up consistently when there are at least 18 other enchantments this thing can be picking? Now, when you post a problem like that on a forum, all anybody does, like the silencing, is they come out and say, oh, you just want it easy. That's the douchebag issues that are on the forum, because it doesn't, people are overlooking for the fact that instead of looking at there's a problem because the game keeps picking the same 5 enchantments. They're looking at, oh, you'd want it easy. No, it doesn't matter what fucking 5 enchantments are coming up. It doesn't even matter. It doesn't matter what 5 levels are being picked, or what 6, or what 6 enemy types are being picked. The fact that only 6 enemy types are being picked out of the 30 plus, only 6 level layouts out of the 30 plus level areas that you can use, that the game can pick from, and then the same 6 elite fixes despite there being 21 over and over again. They don't want to look at that. They just want to look at, oh, you just want it easy. And they're totally fucking oblivious, or they're trolling, because nobody can be that fucking stupid to not understand that random number generators real random number generators that don't have anything wrong with them do not operate that way. They just don't. You will never see the same 6 things 98% of the time on the board or wherever they're being used over and over and over again. Some things will overlap. That's normal. But to have it consistently like that proves it's broken. So, you can't, the game's favoring certain affixes, and Blizzard knows it is and won't fix it. That leads into the leaderboard, which is a total fucking mess, because the leaderboard is supposed to be for fair and competitive gameplay. Yet, the only way anybody gets through this is getting lucky about which rift level layout they have, what enemies are in the rift, as well as what affixes are on the elites. So, it's a random chance, and they probably go through about 200 keystones before they get the level that they need, but that means it's fucking broken, because for people, the leaderboard contains no skill aspects whatsoever. It contains who gets the easier rift. That's what it comes down to. Yeah, some enemies are just, you do need some equipment and understanding how to use the build. But that's far and few in between to what's actually going on. So these are all the complaints that are happening across like every single Blizzard game. They're happening across every single friggin', your account. You can't mute, you can't talk to anybody, you can't talk to your friends, you can't invite anybody to your game. You can't accept invites for people to come into your game. It's fucking ridiculous that much damage is being done because of a bunch of assholes that love to fucking abuse the system. And then Blizzard does nothing about it, and even if they did, they would not unsilence everybody who was fucked over by the system. Well, we can't prove who is. That's why if you're gonna fucking make consequences for it, you unsilence everybody and start over from the very beginning. And I guarantee you that's not going to stop the problem. People are still going to abuse it. And, Blizzard's not going to give a shit. Because if Blizzard actually cared, you can't appeal anything, because all they'll do is they'll defend their end because of what's in the terms of service. So them trying to say, well, stricter consequences are being applied, Blizzard's just going to turn around and say, well, we need to deem that the consequence needs to be applied. That's exactly what they're going to do. And then people are not going to have the proper punishments. It's going to send out the message that it's okay to do. You're not going to get punished. And say it's fucking ridiculous. The only way to fucking stop these issues is to completely remove the report system altogether, or make a very strict listing on what the report system is supposed to be used for, and have a very limited amount of uses for it. So that way, if anybody else uses it for any other purpose other than the list, then it's put on abuse, and the person needs to be removed from the game. Blizzard needs to stop catering and pussyfooting to these stupid douchebags, these social justice warriors that piss and moan about every little thing. Instead of placing somebody on ignore, oh no, we got to get them silenced. Oh, how do we do that? Oh, we just report them mass amount of times. Blizzard doesn't even look at the reason for the reports. They just look at that somebody's being reported enough times. That's all it takes. Let me call my buddies. And that's exactly what's going on. And anybody that disagrees with this, the numerous complaints about this, are either the ones that are causing the problems, or they're just fucking oblivious and trolling. Nobody can be that fucking stupid to not understand that when you have a system that is being misused it's proven to be misused, and all you're going to do is sit there and blame the fucking victim who's been screwed over by the people abusing the system. And then the people that are getting, the people that are blaming the victims aren't having anything happen to them either. So what's the fucking point? It literally just shouldn't exist. And so, I mean, obviously there are very few things that you need to actually report somebody for that is legitimately, that are legitimate reasonings. And that is, obviously terrorism stuff, threats of real danger, child molestation or porn or anything of that nature. Those are valid and legitimate reasons to report somebody. But there needs to be a list inside, inside the terms of service that says this is all you can use the report system for are these, and then that's it. So and then it needs to say if you use the report system for anything else, you're going to be suspended from the game, and you're going to have your chat privileges revoked. It's as simple as that. And anybody is going to say, well, why, that's just harsh and everything else. If people weren't abusing it, this wouldn't be an issue. So again, people totally avoid and ignore that somebody's getting fucked over by the system by saying, well, that's just not a good idea to do that, because then, no, anybody that's saying it's not a good idea is actually in fear of losing the ability to abuse somebody. That's what it comes down to. Anytime anybody puts up a way that we need to shut off, and I've said this in many other videos, anytime anybody comes up with a way to shut down people's way to abuse something, the people that are abusing it come out of the woodwork and start coming up with all this shit about why that's not a good idea, and then almost sounding legitimate, as in, you shouldn't be removing these because they need to be in there. No, if you have ignore or block or, a language filter, you have no right to complain anybody is saying anything, or you don't like what's being said, because you have control over your own chat, and those are what the options are in there for. Blizzard can manipulate, well, that's just in there. No, you put, that's literally stating, that's like saying, well, we put a stop sign here because, we think we want people to stop, we hope people will stop. I mean, that's just added features. No, fucking stop sign means stop. You put a fucking language filter in the game, that means you are saying to this player, you need to use this, or or you have a tendency to see profanity. And if you undo that to see profanity, you can't complain there's profanity in the chat. Blizzard is turning around and saying, well, no, people have a right to uncheck that, and they shouldn't have to see this in chat. No, bottom line, it's an M-rated game, and everybody online is pretty much an adult. And then the ESRB rating even says your online experience may change. Therefore, you're at your own risk about going in here. And you can't tell me that half of these people reporting people aren't watching violent movies with swears. You can't tell me that they're not watching porn or all this other shit that's going on. And yet, I'm offended because somebody said queer in the chat. Fuck off. Seriously, fuck off. And so, it's like, you wouldn't be seeing the word queer if you had your fucking language filter on. You took it off. It's on by default. So somebody literally has to go into their options, go into the gameplay tab, and uncheck these options. I think it's in social. Nope, it's in chat. I have that unchecked because I don't give a shit what people say. How's it going, man? I have this unchecked because I don't give a shit what people say. But the fact that this shit's going on, and you have to come in here, and a player has to come in here and manually uncheck this. So this means anybody bitching and moaning about the mature language filter I'm seeing swears in chat has subjected themselves to doing it. If those reports go to Blizzard, Blizzard needs to tell the person that's reporting it for that, no, you unchecked your language filter. That is not anybody else's problem but yours because you have control over your own chat. Basically, what I'm doing is I'm discussing a major issue that's going across all Blizzard games now, and the retaliations people are doing, the lynch mob mentality, and what Blizzard is basically doing to these games. There's a community. The community is basically convinced Blizzard, it just wants everybody to stop playing these games, and rather than come out and Blizzard come out and say, yeah, we fucked up, we apologize, we put these we put these options in the game, we knew people were abusing them, yes, we didn't feel like changing it, and so because we're not going to change it, we're just going to stop everybody from playing. Instead of doing that, which would piss people off, but at least people would respect them for doing it in the long run, they instead allow all of these bullshit things to drive players away. I mean, if you look at the structure of what they're doing to all these games now, every single one of their games, the structure of them has been destroyed by the differences that they make because they're catering to a lot of bullshit that shouldn't even be going on. So World of Warcraft isn't even a play how you want anymore game, it's play how Blizzard tells you to because of the Pathfinder achievements. Now, the silence issue is going in across all their games. Hearthstone, Overwatch, StarCraft, StarCraft 2, World of Warcraft, especially Diablo 3. And what's fucked up is that if you get silenced in one of these games, you're silenced in all of them. So even if you don't play World of Warcraft and you get silenced in, let's say, Overwatch, people are silencing people in Overwatch because they're picking characters, and Blizzard is allowing this. That's not a valid reason to report somebody, but Blizzard doesn't look at the reports. They only look at how many reports are coming in. So one of the things that they decided to do a solution on was, oh, we're going to have stricter consequences. But that's bullshit because even if they do that, what's going to happen to all the people that people fucked over? Are they going to get unsilenced? No, which doesn't do anything because the damage is already done. That brings into another problem because they're not even dealing with the issue now. All's adding severe consequences is going to allow Blizzard to do is say, well, we didn't feel it was severe enough to do anything. This isn't really considered a severe... They're just going to pull that shit, and that's all they're going to do, and it's not going to solve the fucking problem. What they need to do is they need to completely remove the silence system altogether and apply a very specific list of what you are reporting somebody for, and if you report for anybody for any other reason other than this list, you're going to get suspended. Period. And your chat privileges will be revoked. So the list is a very small list. It would be a valid, legitimate reason. So, for example, terrorist attacks, threats of terrorism, threats of real life violence. I'm going to find you and kill you. Doesn't matter whether it's credible or not. Shit like that shouldn't be being said. I'm going to go shoot somebody. All of this other shit. Child porn. I'm going to rape your mother. Those are valid reasons to report somebody. Okay? But picking somebody's character in Overwatch, or because you don't like somebody's YouTube videos, you decide to report them in the game? Really? So you can't, because I know I have comments shut off under my channel. I've been attacked in the game because people can't have their say under my channel. Well, let's fuck with him here because he's saying this. And it's because I question the integrity and character of the people that are at high stature. But that's not fucking relevant to what I talk about because what I talk about are base facts. Some of these fucking people are douchebags and I call them out on it. I point out what they're doing and the community can't have that, So it's just absolutely ridiculous that all this shit's allowing to go on. And it's not just happening in one game. It's happening across all of them. And then you couple that with how the game structures are. And like I said, if you look at World of Warcraft, they've rendered all professions in that game basically useless because now one character can do everything because of the garrisons and the class halls, because those are just allow you to take up extra, professions, and the Pathfinder achievement, which is given to you after the expansion's useless. Only hardcore players and collectors go back to these expansions, but other than a preferential issue or a completionist issue, which is basically preference, there's no play reason to go back there. Sure, people will say, I have an alternate character. That doesn't fucking matter if you go back to with an alternate character. You've already done the expansion. So they basically have also, people are talking about microtransactions. That's one of them in World of Warcraft. They actually made flying a microtransaction. They literally made that a microtransaction. If you want to fly, you now have to pay to fly. Because how that works is, in order for you to get flight, you have to get the Pathfinder achievement. In World of Warcraft, this is. In order to get flight in the expansions, it requires a Pathfinder achievement. And the Pathfinder achievement takes more than 1 month to get. The subscriptions only go per month. So if you can't get it within the month subscription, now in order to play the game again, you have to pay for it. Now people will look at that as, okay, great, I'm paying to renew my subscription. But what they're actually doing in that regard is they're actually paying for the ability to fly. Because if you weren't, then the ability for you to fly would be able to be obtained within the month time frame for one subscription base. And it's ridiculous how a lot of people are actually justifying and ignoring that. Now you get into the whole issue with loot boxes. Loot boxes, I can't believe what Riker said. I literally was going to I made a comment on his channel. I told him, you need to fucking knock off saying this. That is ridiculously out of line. Basically what he said was, because I guess apparently some company has determined that loot boxes are gambling, which they are. Loot boxes are always gambling, they always have been. But Riker actually decided to say, well, that's drawing a fine line, because what about loot-based grinding games? I told him to shut the fuck up and stop spreading rumors like that. Problems across the game community where you hear a bunch of people complaining about it starts because of comments like that said by people like him who people hold in high regard. So it's like these assholes that are going around saying you can play old school games in 4K. No, you can't, because they're basically people in upper stature spreading false information by mistitling stuff and giving off incorrect information in the title of their video, and then trying to defend their position by overloading the comment section that anybody that challenges on them fill with bullshit, or they delete their comment. And now you have a bunch of people running around with false information. I called these assholes out on this one day. I says, you cannot play, and even with the most basic explanations, they still were fucking trying to argue. So the point here is that you can't play older games in 4K resolution. The simple reason is because what is being displayed on a monitor's capability has no relevance to what the game itself was actually made from. This would be the equivalency of saying a Blu-ray player can play any DVD in Blu-ray simply because it has the capability to play it in Blu-ray. As long as your TV can output it, it doesn't matter what you put in there, it's coming in that resolution. That's 100% false, because the only way a movie can be made in the only way a movie can be watched in Blu-ray is if the movie itself was filmed that way. Same thing with a game. The only way a game can be played in 4K is if the game itself was made in 4K, which requires a completely new release of the game. So it's not, you can't take an older copy that has no 4K resolution built into the game itself and then display it on a 4K monitor and say, oh, I'm playing it in 4K just because it's being displayed on the monitor. It doesn't work like that. That would be the equivalency of hooking up a VHS player to a high-definition TV and then saying your movie's going to come out in high definition. That's not correct. That won't ever happen, and it can't happen unless the movie itself was made and filmed with the high-definition capability. So when you get assholes that pull that shit, it's the same thing with Riker saying, well, you know, the loot boxes, it's a fine line when you got these loot grinding games. Fuck that. That's not the same thing. It's not even close to the same thing. But because he said it, people will start taking that comment and putting it into the gaming. And what happens is, because of who said, it's not just about what is said, it's about who says it. I made another video about this on the asshole that was fucking doing Fallout 76. He did a review of Fallout 76, and this was in another video. It had to do with me discussing the microtransactions of Assassin's Creed Odyssey and shit. And what wound up happening is the asshole in the video actually had the fucking balls to say, well, I'm confused as to why Bethesda and ZeniMax didn't give us a proper working copy. I was like, are you fucking kidding me? Now, clearly, the explanation for why I said that is, it's simple. Anybody who plays games, whether you're casual or not, if you're in the gaming realm, you know about the Watch Dogs fiasco and everybody, that shitstorm that happened with that. You can't not know about that because it's in the gaming realm. Somebody at some point, whether or not you understand what it's about, you know that there was an issue with that. Same thing with The Witcher 3. You know there was an issue with the way the graphicking is, because the major players that said this said it, spread the information, so it spreads like wildfire throughout the gaming industry. It's like drugs. Everybody knows what drugs will do to you. Everybody does, because you can't not know, because there's so much advertisement about it, no matter where you are in the world. So it's impossible for you to not know what drugs do to you, simply because of all the information that's out there and the ads and everything else. Plus people talking about it, and the detoxes and whatever. The gaming industry is the same way. It just remains inside the gaming industry, but every gamer knows this stuff. So this douchebag clearly was in. He's a gamer, so he's a reviewer, so there's no way he could not know about this, because ZeniMax invited him to play Fallout 76, which is still, at that time, was still in a beta, wasn't even finished, and here he is bitching about, I don't understand why they didn't give us a full working copy of it. And I said, because if they did give you a full working copy of it, you fucking douchebag, everybody would be pulling the same fiasco shit as Watch Dogs. Oh, these graphics aren't that good, because when Ubisoft presented Watch Dogs at E3, all that was a working concept and how advertisement works. That's how businesses do stuff. They're going to show the best shit that they have in the best quality. If people decided that was how the game was going to go, then they were fucking idiots. But unfortunately, people that were in high stature, that people liked, started this information, put it out there because they knew people were going to take that information and spread it throughout the community. So what they did was they created a false problem out of absolutely nothing. And then there was a fucking fiasco on the net. Now, whether or not Ubisoft gave a shit about that doesn't change for the fact that everybody was fed false information by these fucktards that did this. And that caused a problem, which brings me to the point on what this asshole fucking said about Fallout 76. And then, on top of that, I just watched another video where this douchebag was fucking complaining his computer, which was this high-end bullshit, couldn't run Fallout 76 properly, despite it still wasn't made. He's trying to say his computer should be able to run an unfinished game that's still not even completed. I guess that's the same thing. That's not even fully functioning yet. That it's not even completed. So the elements in it that aren't completed are still not fully functioning because they're still being worked on. And he was saying, well, my computer is this and this, should have been able to run this at this. The guy's a fucking fucktard. Because anybody that has a $10,000 computer or whatever the hell they put into it, I laugh at them when they actually believe that their computer system is so fucking superior that it should be able to run everything smoothly. And that's not how things work. So it's just really funny. But here's the thing. If you try to tell these assholes this, all you're going to do is get pig-piled on by the community. Me, I don't give a shit. I'll fucking say it right out as it is. And that's why I don't leave comments open up underneath some of my videos. Because we all know that people on the internet don't read. We know that they butcher statements. We also know that they're trolling. We know all this other shit. So I will go ahead and delete people's comments under videos I have left open because of certain things that I ask. And then I will say, I will tell them, I deleted your comment simply because what you're saying is totally no relevance. And when you finally get some comprehension to actually understand how this works, then come back and talk to me, because right now you're trying to dictate things you know absolutely nothing about. I says, my information, a lot of the stuff that I talk about in my videos come directly from the developer. I don't mean I talk to the developer, meaning the information is sent out by the developer. So when I get people telling me I'm wrong, the reality is they're not telling me I'm wrong. They're actually saying I know better than the developer and the developer's wrong. So, and here's the thing. It doesn't matter if I said it. They're only out to say because it doesn't matter what I'm saying. It's because I'm saying it, they're telling me it's wrong. But like I said, I point blank said, you're not telling me I'm wrong. Yeah, I said it, but I'm just relaying information from point A to point B. I didn't come up with this information. I didn't make it up. This isn't an observation. And I even linked where I got it from. Oh, that's wrong. I said, okay, you basically just said you know better than the developer? Okay. And so there's some really stupid shit that people do. So basically, bitching about it doesn't do anything. It really doesn't. So, I mean, people are like, why are you making these videos? Because I can. Makes me feel better. Gets it off my chest. I mean, it's not going to solve anything. But, hey, what can you do, you know? So that's about the extent of that. It's just really fucking ridiculous what people do. Everybody knows the internet's all fucked up. But basically, back to the issue at hand here, that Blizzard clearly doesn't want people playing their games anymore. You can't. That's blatantly obvious. Anybody who can't see that is just oblivious, or they're a troll, saying stuff to spite people. And you know, like I said, this isn't something that I've been silenced in this game. I don't give a shit. I don't give a fuck if I get banned from this game. This game is not really. This game is so fucking old. It doesn't even matter. But that doesn't change the fact that this fucking problem is going on all of these games. It's not just one person. It's not just one game. It's across everything. And again, it's not just the abuse of the systems. It's what Blizzard does to the games to change them to the point where nobody's fucking playing them anymore. Because the games go from the way they were to they just do a complete fucking 180. They really do. They do a complete 180, and they totally stripped out a lot of the elements that make these games what they are. And there are very simple solutions to this, but they're not going to do it. You know, far be it for them to do anything, you know? So, I don't know. And so what you wind up with is, you know, here's the stupidity level of gamers in general. I made a comment about APB, which is All Points Bulletin. And let me see if I can actually find that comment. I'm going to see if I can bring it up, and I'll read it to you. I don't think it's on the net anymore. I think it's gone. AP. I'm seeing if I can actually find hold on, so maybe it's APB Reloaded. Oh, you know what? APB Reloaded. Alright, I can't find it. I think the comment's fucking gone. But I basically wrote up this whole thing about APB creates retards. That's what I titled it. I said APB, All Points Bulletin, creates retards. And what I basically said was, to sum it up, because I can't remember, I says, all anybody does in this game is run up the street like a retard. Stealing cars like a retard. And I just kept saying that over and over to every little thing. They load up their gun like a retard. Shoot out the window and do drive-bys like a retard. And then I says, you don't need AP. If I had known APB Reload, I didn't play the game. I was just watching it. I says, why the hell would anybody pay $50 for APB to become a total retard when they can just watch Drake and Josh and Drake on Nickelodeon for free and become a retard for free. I said that to them. Fucking somebody goes, that's not right. And so you have the communities that are destroying games. Rift I was in the beta of Rift. I was in the beta of a lot of games. And here's something interesting people don't know about me. I have a couple of things in my game guide video that I'm gonna use on my channel because I did stuff, and I've done a lot of stuff that game company said wasn't possible, and I'm the only person to do it. Whether or not I'm the only one, whether the reasoning for that is because I'm the only one that spent the time to do it, or nobody else could figure it out, or nobody cared, doesn't change the fact that I'm the only one that actually did it. And so, when you have, when you have all these games that are in beta, the whole point of making is, and why I brought up APB is because of Conan Exiles. Or Conan, no, it's not Conan Exiles. It was Conan, what the fuck, there was a Conan game. It's not Conan Exiles, it was a Conan game. And what it came down to is that gamers want something new. And so what happens is, when a game comes out with a semi-decent system, what winds up happening is people got what they asked for, and then when the system comes out, all they do is they compare the new system to a current game that they're playing, and then say, well, since it's not the same, the system's shit, and then go back to playing their game, which totally fucks up what they asked for to begin with. So that's the circular logic that gamers use. They cry they want something new. When something new does come out, they compare it to an older system and shit on it. And so the reason I brought up Conan is because the combat system in Conan was insane. It was very well put together, and that was great. But because it didn't coincide with the combat system in World of Warcraft, it sucked. Even though it was a good combat system in itself because of how they did it, it's not World of Warcraft, so I guess we're not gonna use it. Another game was the Chronicles of Spellborn. I went on the forum and I was watching, like, you can still look at gameplay videos to this, and I was I went in and I read a lot of the shit on this game, and I says the combat system in this game makes no fucking sense whatsoever, and it really didn't because of the way they designed it. And I says, what the fuck are you guys doing? I says, this game is going to fail because of the shit combat system you made in it. It's not the combat system, it's how they did the attacks. It was really fucked up. I says, how does this even fucking work? I say, how does that work? And somebody's like, well, it does this and this. And I says, that doesn't make any sense. How would you even pull that off in this condition? And they're like, well, this and this. I said, that doesn't make any fucking sense. I says, again, we're back to square one. If I wanted to connect this and this, how would I do that? It has to go through this cycle. Well, you do this and this. And I says, well, that just contradicts what you said, because now you're saying the system has to go through this entire cycle. But if you're connecting move 1 to move 6, and the way the combat system worked in the Chronicles of Spellborn is that it was almost like a slot machine type of thing, but it didn't roll like that. What it was that it had a row that was set in a circle of 6 rows. So it would go row 1, row 2, row 3. It would rotate, and it had like 4 or 5 abilities you could put into it. So basically you could put and mix and match any abilities you want on the first row, then go to the second row, then go to the third row. And what happened is, when you attack somebody, it would run through the row 1 and then swip to row 2, and then swip to row 3, and then swip to row 4. I'm saying swip, but it's basically swaps it. So it switches and then uses whatever skills are in there. I call it swipping because it's rotating, swapping weapon skills and shit. I don't know, it's a made-up word. Anyway, the point is that it would run and rotate through the first row, starting at the first end and then running to the end. And once it ran that course, it would change to row 2. If you look up a video, you'll see how it's put together. It's fucked up. But anyway, what happened was it would then rotate and go through all things until it went through all 6 six ways around. The problem is if you put a skill that has a chain connection in the first slot, the first row, not the first slot in the first row, just in the first row, and then the last part of that chain is in row 6, how the fuck are you chaining 1 and 6 together? Because it has to go through 1, 2, 3. It would go in sequential order in the roll. So I'm like, how does this even fucking work? Somebody's like, well, it just chains it together. I says, you can't chain it together. If you did 1, if you had it in the first row of row 1, and then you had the last part of it in the 6th row in the second slot at row 6, you're interrupting all of that by going through all these other attacks. I'm like, how the fuck would you even do that? Why would you just fucking have row 1 and put one next to the other? Well, then it needs to do this. I'm like, you just fucking contradicted yourself. So it wound up, basically, to make a long story short, I went on the forum and I basically said, you guys have this combat system so fucked up, this game is going to fail because of this combat system. You guys are going to cause this game to fail. Sure enough, I got told, you're a troll. You don't know what you're talking about. You're just dumb. You can't figure it out. Blah, 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 blah. Sure enough, the game fucking failed. And guess why? It's combat system. So the point here is that whether people shit on me or not has no relevance to anything. People are like, oh, you're dumb because you can't figure this out or you can't figure that out. None of that shit's relevant because I have a better handle on most games and I understand the mechanics of a lot more games. And I know when a game is going to fail and when it's not due to what the hell is going on in it and understanding this. So people telling me I can't figure out how to move my mouse across the screen is not even a valid argument compared to the shit that I've come up with. Now, whether or not I know how to move my mouse across the screen doesn't even matter because if there's no instruction saying to move your mouse, anybody that does it is not following instructions. That's the counter argument for that. Because if you're in a tutorial, like if I boot up Destiny 2 right now, I can, because Destiny 2, by the way, in case you if you have a Blizzard account, Destiny 2 is free right now if you get it before November 18th. So not the expansions, just the main game itself. It's free. So if I boot up Destiny 2 right now, or I make a video on Destiny 2, what's going to wind up happening is I'm going to start pointing out that the game just drops you in there. There isn't. You're supposed to be in a tutorial. So in a tutorial, you're supposed to be being told every single gameplay basic. That's what the definition of tutorial is. Gamers attack me saying, well, you're dumb because you can't. None of that shit matters because when you're using the word, not you in general, but when the word tutorial is used, you're saying a very specific statement is being said. Somebody's like, well, that's semantics. No, that's the fucking definition of tutorial. So if the word tutorial is used by the developers and then it actually doesn't follow through with the definition of it, then the game is put together shitty, period. So that's why there's a video on my channel. It goes over grammar. It explains, like, as I open up the dictionary and I show this is this, this, and this, and this. And at the end I says, when a gamer says this word, this is what they're saying. And I take you through. I take you through all the parts of it and everything else. So when you're using the word tutorial, I guess that I have this on my channel. When you're using the word tutorial, it breaks down in saying every instruction about what to do is there in easy steps. Now, when you pull that together, you have to look up what the word instruction means. Instruction means every step that is put there easy to follow. Meaning, in other words, you can't skip steps. So if something says, we want you to move, I'll use Mass Effect 2 for example. And let me back up because let me finish about I'll use Mass Effect 2 as the example for this after this. So first of all, you're dealing with the word tutorial. The word tutorial contains the word instruction. It's part of it. Tutorial means step by step, easy to understand instructions. The word instruction means all of the information is given in a basic, easy to understand format. The terminology easy to understand is meaning every single person that picks it up, regardless of their comprehension level or regardless of what they do, can understand it and know what to do and actually get the result that they're looking for. the term result, I went into this. The term result is, whatever. And then I went into what the word opinion means and what the word fact means. And then I went and explained a few things about what is considered an instruction and what isn't. So when it comes down to it, when a game developer or a gamer says, "Did you do the tutorial?" or if a gamer says, "Hey, did you do the tutorial?" or a game developer says, "This is the tutorial area," if you're going to label it tutorial, you have to have every single step there. You have to have written on-screen instructions for the basics on every single step. So, for example, in Mass Effect 2, the beginning of the game is considered a tutorial in most regard because what it's doing is it's explaining to you as you come across things how to utilize it. So in Mass Effect 2, it tells you to walk over and pick up the weapon. When you get over there, it says pick up the weapon with this button. Okay, that's a tutorial because it's telling you that's a tutorial for the weapon because it's telling you how to pick the weapon up. It didn't skip any steps. It didn't have you walk over there and say, "Okay, get the weapon," and then not tell you how to pick it up. It actually says walk over and press this button. Then it says to run, do this. To reload, do this. Walk over ammunition to pick it up. Then when you get into the friggin' other sections of how to pick up this weapon, when you walk over it, it doesn't tell you anything. They just assume you know how to fucking do anything, but what they're not differentiating is, clearly there's a distinction where people would say, well, that's dumb, but that's not the frickin' point. The point here is that if they tell you all of these basic steps up to that point, but yet they don't tell you how to pick up a weapon off of the ground, then there's something fucking wrong. Because you can't go through all these steps and then not do that little one, because that's that's not a tutorial. It doesn't matter whether somebody can guess what to do or press buttons. The fact that the game did all these other steps prior to this and then didn't do that is an issue. It means it's broken, because you can't tell somebody to do something and then leave them hanging. And that brings me to the point on what I'm getting at with Mass Effect 2, is that when you're dealing with, there's a section in the game when you come up to it, you're dealing with it's a puzzle. It's a small puzzle, or it's a slow difficulty puzzle, if you want to put it that way. And what it says is we're gonna, you're basically gonna hack the computer. So match the symbols on the screen to complete the circuit or something like that. The problem is when you start the puzzle, the timer's counting down, and there's nothing on the screen that tells you where the symbols are, how to get them on the screen, or what you need to do in order to match them. So it's missing 3 basic pieces of information that allow you to do that puzzle, which everyone's like, oh, you're dumb because you can't figure that out. That phrase, figure it out, indicates that there's a message on the screen that says, hey, we're not going to give you any information on the screen. See if you can guess what to do. There's no message or anything else. There's nothing on the screen. So anybody saying they figured it out doesn't understand what the term figure it out means, and they're just talking out their ass, because it's not a math problem. If I gave you a math problem and said, okay, here's X and Y, figure out what this is, find the difference between this and this. Okay, that gives you an indication that required to be figured out, because you not only have the parts of the problem, but you have a piece of instruction that says, we're not telling you, you need to do it on your own. That's not even in a game, because without that being in a game, there's nothing to do. So somebody's like, well, I literally had somebody in GameStop when I went in there. I was talking about Mass Effect. I was just telling this kid, this fucking game is horrible because it doesn't explain anything. He's like, some kid goes, well, did you move your mouse across the screen? I says, no, why would I? He goes, why wouldn't you? I said, because I'm in a fucking tutorial, you idiot, and the game didn't tell me how I needed to. I says, what do you mean, why wouldn't I? I didn't say that to him. I was thinking that. He's like, why wouldn't you? I'm like, because I'm in a fucking tutorial and the game didn't tell me to move my mouse? I mean, that's the mentality of these fucking people. So that would be like you go into a basic math class and say, okay, we're going to teach you how to do the basics of math, and then they put 1 + 1 on the board and then say nothing. And then you're somehow supposed to know what's he fucking doing with it. There's not. Well, that means solve it. No, it doesn't fucking mean anything because if he didn't say solve it. It doesn't just because you have a one. You know what I mean? It's fucking stupid. So I made up a really. I came up with a really good example on the definition of being explained because if you look at my videos when I open up screens, I point out that there's nothing written on them and this is the way gamers need to be talked to. So I came up with this really good example on the mentality between gamers and the average person. So, if something were to be explained, this is what would have to happen for something to be actually explained. If you get 100 people and split them into two groups, 50 of them are gamers, and the other 50 have no clue about games at all, and you put a flashing dot on the screen of a computer and sit the gamers in front of it, 99% of the gamers will click that dot for no fucking reason, just because it's flashing on the screen, and then actually argue that that means press it. Yet, if you put the other 50 people that know nothing about games in front of it, they're going to sit and look at the fucking screen. Now, what's going to happen with that is the non-gamers will ask the gamers, why are you fucking pressing that? Then the gamers will say, well, because that's what you do. And then they say, something flashing on the screen means to click it. The other people will say, where are you getting that fucking from? It doesn't say to do anything. So the non-gamers will ask the gamers, why the fuck are you clicking it? The gamers will ask the non-gamers, why aren't you clicking it? And none of that shit is fucking relevant. Because the only point here is that it's not explained. If something is explained, all 100 people would click it. And that leads me to the point that I got a friend of mine who has no clue on how to properly write instructions because he always tries to use the counter argument of, oh, there's no way to write everything in the game. And that turns into people failing to understand the concept about a basic mechanic being given an example and then saying, from this example, here you go. Because there's a way to write instructions so it clarifies everything under that one context. So you have a learning curve to work off of compared to nothing at all. And then saying, well, you can't write everything about that. And the simple thing is that anybody saying you can't write an instruction like that for everybody has no idea how to write instructions and has no idea what they're talking about because I can give prime examples of this all the time. I do it in my videos. And so what winds up happening is, in order for everybody, by clicking on the green dot on the screen, it brought you to the next page. The only way to get everybody to go to the next page, all 100 people to go to the next page, is by putting a very simple statement on the screen. Click this flashing green button. Done. Now what happens is, if you don't put that message on the screen, only 99% of the gamers will click it because it's just flashing and somehow they've put that in their head to mean click it. The other half of the people will just be staring at the screen asking the gamers, why'd you click it? The gamers will be asking them, why didn't you click it? And instead of everybody fucking shutting the fuck up and realizing that the only way it's explained is if everybody clicks it and that we didn't click it, so it's clearly not explained. Just because it's explained to the gamers does not mean it's explained. Just because having it explained means all 100 people would get to the next page. So when people say it's explained or explained enough, what they're saying is, well, I had enough information, so that's good enough for me, so fuck you. Or, well, it is explained. They don't know what they're talking about, or they're being selfish, because it's not. Like I said, I mean, I can go in and show you where, in Guild Wars 2, if you look, it only has 2 pieces of instructions, and then there's no other fucking way to actually do anything. Guild Wars 2 doesn't explain shit. I fucking hate AreaNet. Guild Wars 1 is the worst fucking game ever made. It really is. And so, it's literally at the #1 slot of the worst games ever made. And Guild Wars 2, while some of it was explained a little bit better, or some of it was done better than Guild Wars 2, it's still no better than Guild Wars 1. It just isn't. It's almost as fucking bad. And because, like I said, if you watch the video, I show that there's only 2 instructions. There is no fucking tutorial, no nothing. And this is one of these things people go, well, did you read the right hand up in the right hand corner of the screen? No, why would I? Well, that's what you're supposed to do. I said, prove it. Where did the game developer say that's where the next thing you have to do is? It doesn't give you a message. It doesn't give you anything. So people are just using after the fact knowledge as well as looking at something saying, oh, that means that just because they decided that's, just because it says that. And another example is if you walk up to something, stash. Nowhere on it does it say click to open. It just says stash. You have to, in order for somebody to, now the average gamer will tell you this is dumb, but that whether or not you think somebody thinks somebody's dumb has no relevance to the fact that that does not mean click on it. I don't know where people get this shit from. Like in Guild Wars 2, if you go up to somebody and you get close enough to them or an NPC, it says F, talk. People are like, oh, that means press F. It says, no, it fucking doesn't. Where are you getting the word press out of that? It doesn't say press F to talk. So the fine line here is that game developers get so fucking sloppy that they can't even put a simple word in front of something because having an F on the screen doesn't mean press F to talk. It just says F talk. What the fuck does that even mean? That literally isn't even proper grammar. Now, obviously, everybody can argue saying, "Well, did you press F?" But if people are going to say, "Did you press F?" they have to have the common understanding to say, "No, I didn't press F," because it doesn't say press F. It doesn't have the word press. For them to turn around and say, well, it doesn't need the word press, means they don't know what they're talking about. Because if you want somebody to press F, you can't just assume somebody's going to look and say F means press, because it doesn't do that, because not everybody reads like that. Now, gamers will say that's kind of dumb, but I'm not going to agree with that, because that would be the equivalency of, one of the prime examples I use of this is because it is the disk drive on a computer. Somehow, gamers have it in their head that game developers are the only business in existence who is somehow exempt from having to explain their products or how to use them. They somehow think they're not required to explain a product. All products in the United States are required to come with instructions and warning labels. Instructions including everything you need to know about the basics. So, bringing that back to the disk drive, people like, they have this mentality, since they didn't need it, then it doesn't need to be there. Or if 1 million people did it, then you're just dumb. None of that shit's relevant to the facts that, while you and I may not need the instructions how to open the disk drive in our computer, and neither do millions of people, and we may think that's silly, our opinions are fucking totally irrelevant. Because the fact remains, in the computer user manual, it literally explains how to open the disk drive on your computer, and sometimes it'll even show a diagram of a hand opening it, or pressing a button, or whatever opens it, or however you do it. The point here is that 1 million people not needing the instructions and thinking it's silly is totally irrelevant to the fact that it's still required. It's a requirement for it to be inside the computer user manual, because there's going to be somebody out there that doesn't know. And people can say that's silly and dumb all you want, but the fact remains, if a computer's user manual does it, the same also applies to games. Gamers have this fucking shit in their head where they get this fucked up mentality because, it's like, I don't play first-person shooters. So, it's not relevant what buttons jump, shoot, aim, none of that shit fucking matters. It still needs to be explained in the game, because you also shouldn't have to play a previous game or a game in the series to understand how to play the current one you're playing. You shouldn't have to do that. So it's not relevant whether or not somebody played it or how many games somebody has played. That's a comment that fucking gets me all the time. I'm like, what the fuck does how many games somebody has to play have to do with anything? It has absolutely nothing to do with the issue of this game should still be explaining how to use it, whether or not you've played it. So, one of the things I bring up, and I bring the point back, is actually in video. It's in Mass Effect for that example. It's in Mass Effect 3. The inconsistency of what happens when you use the same buttons on something, because like I said, the prime example of this, and I trashed the shit out of Mass Effect, but it's not me trashing it, it's me pointing out the flaws, showing how shittily programmed the game is, and that's what game developers do to games. Because here you have, in Mass Effect 3, I pointed out, I says, you're told how to pick up all these things off of the floor and everything else, but now you're not told how to actually fucking pick this weapon up or how to pick up health packs. Now you get it, you take that, which is an inconsistency with opening doors. You get a button for everything else, how to reload, how to kneel, how to crouch, how to do all this, how to reload, but you don't get a button for opening the doors. Whether or not you know how to open them doesn't change for the fact that they give a fucking button for everything else but not the doors. And now you run into a secondary issue in that where some doors open when you walk up to them automatically and some don't, which is an even further inconsistency, because either have all of the doors fucking open or don't have any at all, or press a button, and either have everything have a button, a hotkey, or don't have anything at all. You can't have some things with a hotkey, some things not. And then another thing, like I said, if you look at my Mass Effect 3 video, I made that video because somebody asked me to make it for them. And then when I did, they fucking got pissed off at me and removed me from their friends list. I was like, whatever. You're the one that made me that, I even said at the beginning of the video, you're going to have a problem understanding what I'm talking about, because you're going to be taking stuff you already know how to do and trying to apply it here. But the fact remains is you wouldn't be able to do that when you first started because you don't have that knowledge to place there. So my point is that I don't allow people to bring after the fact knowledge into a current situation, that because you wouldn't have that information, wouldn't be available for you to even use to argue with. So I don't pay attention to the fact of anything that anybody that's already played a game, I don't allow them to bring information that was never given up to that point into the argument. I don't let them do it, because you don't, like I said, you don't have that information to argue with at that point. It's not given to you. So that's the other thing here. So, I mean, I've rambled enough, and I'm kind of like messing around, and I gotta eventually get some sleep. But I just wanted to get some of the shit out of the way, because I don't know. I think Blizzard just needs to shut all these fucking games down. I really do, and it's because, like I said, if you look at the list of people that are stopping, like World of Warcraft and stuff like that. Now, not that that's a big deal, but if you just look at the reasoning behind it, and then you compare their reasoning to the original way the game was designed, you'll see that Blizzard has just fucked it up. Now, like I said, everything's because of everything that's going on in all of their games across all the platforms, in what's happening with the way the game structure is, the abuse of all the systems. They're not doing anything about it. Things like that. It's fucking ridiculous that the only conclusion you can come to is they don't want people playing their games, and they're just going to drive people out of it. So that's about it. I'm going to end this stream now because there's nothing really left to talk about, and I've been standing here not playing my character, so I will talk to you guys later. So thanks for stopping by. Appreciate it. This is TL Gamer signing off. Have a good day or night wherever you guys are.